Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
In order for women to have the right to have their own bathrooms, you have to ban transgenderism entirely. You can't just ban it for the kids. It's got to be entirely. In order for women to be able to have their own locker rooms at the gym, you have to ban transgenderism entirely. In order to protect businesses from having to participate in weird occult sexual rituals like the transgender transition, you have to ban transgenderism entirely. I love this bill because it is so much more aggressive than the other bills we've seen. I don't mean to knock the other governors and the other state houses. They've done a great job laying the groundwork, but this bill goes much further, and it reminds us of a truth in politics that Republicans all too often forget. You're either on offense or you're on defense. You're either making gains in the culture or you're losing ground in the culture. There's no standing still. There's no status quo. There's no neutrality. And what the conservatives have screwed up on for at least 50 years now, probably more, is the libs make some crazy aggressive play, and then we try to dial it back by about 5 to 10%. Or worse, we try to slow it down by about 5 to 10%.
I mean, this is...
So the libs...
This is complete projection. This is an inversion of history. The Republicans have been incredibly aggressive on everything. We're seeing it in the Biden administration right now with things like, I don't know, the Iran deal or foreign policy, Title 42, the border. Like, the Republicans break things, and then it takes so much longer for Democrats to build things. But they haven't been aggressive at all.
The fundamental political institution. They claim that men and women are basically the same. That takes the culture pretty far to the left, and then conservatives try to inch it back a little bit, but not by the time they're even thinking about inching it back, the libs push forward with the normalization of other sexual practices, gay rights, among other things. And then, by the time the conservatives are trying to dial that back, the libs they've lurched much further to
black people get to vote.
Redefine marriage now. They say redefine marriage. Well, I don't know. I guess we could come to some kind of terms with a civil union, and by the time you say that, they've lurched even further to the left. Now,
let's also remind everybody what traditional marriage is. Traditional marriage is the woman is chattel.
Mm-hmm.
Traditional marriage is if somebody comes and rapes your wife, and you're a guy, that's a crime against you, not her.
You've got a stake in that.
That's a crime against your property. And he is lamenting the fact that society has progressed to the point where if you rape a woman, it's an assault on the woman, not on her property owner.
They said that I was calling for the extermination of transgender people. They said I was calling for a genocide against... I said, what? I must have missed that part of my show. When did I say that? I don't know how you could have a genocide of transgender people, because genocide refers to genes. It refers to genetics. It refers to biology. And the whole point of transgenderism is that it has nothing to do with biology. That's what the transgender activists say.
Hey, folks, here's a pro tip. When you're having to get semantical about your calls to ban the existence of trans people as not being genocide based upon the Latin roots of a particular word or something,
I mean,
you got a little bit of a problem.
Or you went to Yale.
Right.
Yale drama, no less.
Now, I don't know how you could have a genocide of transgender people, because genocide refers to genes. It refers to genetics. It refers to biology. And the whole point of transgenderism is that it has nothing to do with biology. That's what the transgender activists say. They say, forget about biological sex. My gender expression doesn't have to have anything to do with my biological sex. Okay, well then there can't be a genocide. That refers to genetics. But furthermore, nobody's calling to exterminate anybody, because the other problem with that statement is that transgender people is not a real ontological category.
All right, pause it for a second. He slipped up there. Because he said the word exterminate. You don't want to use genocide? Sure. Now, use the word extermination. Do you have a response to that argument? When we want to play semantics about the word, he doesn't. But he did say exterminate there. So that's in the back.
Are you ready?
Hello everybody, it's Jeff. Today has been a very windy day here in Maine. We've had 45 to 50 mile an hour gusts here today. And they're expecting some power outages if they haven't already happened. It's funny because it started off sunny this morning, and then it just got clouds just moved right in all of a sudden, and I figured, like, we'd probably get just a little bit of cloud and maybe some snow, but I don't know. The weather around here is really unpredictable, especially when we're changing seasons here. We're going into spring here, and is it next week we do the daylight savings thing again? I think it's next week. I'm not sure. I can't remember now, but I think it's the 12th. But we're coming up on that, and usually around that time you're going to start to see the weather patterns change from one season into the next. And in this state, when we have that, we see winds. And so that's what we're having right now. So winter is moving out and spring is coming in. And what is it they say that this is the time of year where people start to dig out all their springtime things, okay? Cleaning and all that stuff, they do all that stuff. And it's just, I think I started a little bit early because I figured, with things going on, ain't much to do. I figured, well, I might as well start doing some of it I can do here inside. Excuse me. So I started doing that. And along the way, I finally decided to get assertive and figure out what the hell is going on with my television. I don't know if you guys remember, but I've been having trouble with that damn thing, streaming stuff like HBO Plus, Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, except for YouTube. But these other ones, when I would be on these channels to watch stuff, it would be buffering all the time, or sometimes the sound wouldn't match the picture. It's like, there was like a delay between, when somebody says something and then the sound comes in after, okay? So we had these weird this weird stuff happening, and I thought it was my internet that was causing the problem. It turns out it was nothing to do with the internet at all. I got the fastest internet there is in this area, okay? But the problem was the Fire Stick that I was using. Apparently, it's out of date. And I went down to Best Buy and I got the most up-to-date one they had on the shelf, and it was 4K, something like that. I can't remember what it was. It's a newer kind of Fire Stick. And they told me that would cure my problem. I said, all right, fine. But I said, if it doesn't work, can I return it? And he said, oh, yeah, you can bring it back. All right, so I paid about $40-something for this damn thing. The other one, I only paid like half that. But I paid $40-something for this. Took it home. Had a hell of a time, you know, taking the old one out and putting the new one in because of where my TV sits. So I had to kind of tear the living room apart, and the cat didn't like that. And so once I got that all situated and hooked up and everything, I sat down, turned the TV on, Fire Stick comes on, and I said, let's go to Paramount Plus and see if that damn thing's going to start in again. I clicked on that, bang, clicked right in. I was like, whoa. Clicked on a show, I just randomly picked something, bang, starts right in. I'm like, damn! I'm like, Jesus, this is really working good now. And I still haven't had any buffering problems with that, okay? And I'm like, wow. So this whole friggin' time, I'm sitting here bitching about Spectrum. I'm bitching about the goddamn, you know, the streaming services not being up to par. All along, it was my Fire Stick that wasn't up to par. You know, there is an option on the Fire Stick to update itself, okay, when you want to update it. Well, I was updating the one that I had, and I figured, you know, that would cure it, and it never did. But what I didn't factor into it is that internet these days, when it's streaming, it's broadcasting in 4K, okay, which means that even if you have the most up-to-date Fire Stick on the TV, if it doesn't accept 4K, you're going to have trouble with that, because it's not going to take what it's receiving and translate that, you know, as well on your TV as it should, because it's getting data that's more advanced than what the Fire Stick can take. So I had to get the 4K Fire Stick. When I did that, folks, it was a whole different thing altogether. You know, incredible. It's funny that after everything, that nobody ever suggested or asked me, you know, what kind of Fire Stick you're using. They were telling me, well, check with your internet provider and check with, you know, contact your streaming service. You know, everybody was all the way around the fucking problem. And I just guessed and hit the friggin' mark, you know, just by saying, well, maybe it's the damn Fire Stick, because I saw they had newer ones, and I was figuring, you know, what's the difference? They do the same thing, right? No, they don't. The more expensive the Fire Stick, the more advanced it is. So I grabbed the one that was the most expensive they had, and that was the 4K one. I didn't know what the hell that meant. I still don't know what 4K means. I just know it has something to do with data. So once I plugged that in, that secured my problem right there. All the streaming services run beautifully now on there. I don't have any trouble. So for those of you out there who are probably experiencing the same problems, and you're using a Fire Stick, see if the one you have is 4K first. If it isn't, go get a 4K one and plug that one in. Okay, I know it's a pain in the ass to have to go through all the settings and get the internet plug, you know, all that stuff in there. But if it recognizes that you already have a Fire Stick account, a lot of that will be transferred onto the newer Fire Stick, so you won't have to go through so much of it. You'll still have to put in passwords and stuff like that to the channels you subscribe to, just the same. But it'll remember, you know, your internet that you use, and you know, and so stuff like that. You won't have to put all the information in, but it still takes time. I mean, it took me a half an hour there at least to reset, you know, everything back the way it was. And you know, my apartment is very well internet connected here. I mean, if I lose the internet, I mean, my apartment basically just shuts down. Almost everything in here is run by the internet using the Alexa app. So that's so that's what went on for me this weekend. And I'll tell you, I'm really glad that I fixed it. I used my brain to fix it instead of complaining about it. Okay, so here is another bit of insanity here coming from Marjorie Taylor Greene. She wants the United States to do military strikes on Mexico because of all the, you know, immigration issues. You know, if Hitler ever came back, she'd make the perfect wife for that bastard. You know what I'm saying? She really would. So this is the story here. It's from Alternet, and it's written by David Badash from the New Civil Rights Movement. Okay. Marjorie Taylor Greene is calling for the U.S. armed forces to militarily attack Mexico, specifically Mexican cartels, which under international law would be illegal and could be seen as a declaration of war. The extremist Republican Congresswoman on Monday said the U.S. military should be, quote, stationed at our southern border, unquote, and called for the American troops to, quote, strategically strike and take out the Mexican cartels, unquote, while specifying, quote, not the Mexican government or their people, but the Mexican cartels which control them all, unquote. Quote, they are international terrorists and criminals murdering Americans every day with drugs and crime, unquote. She continued, echoing Donald Trump's 2015 presidential announcement. Quote, they are making billions on drug and human trafficking and are terrorizing anyone who stands in their way. Our military is competent and should take them out swiftly. Make an example out of these monsters. The only difference between the cartels and ISIS is that the cartels are on our southern border, unquote. Green, who has increasingly been pushing pro-Russian and anti-Ukraine rhetoric, also on Monday used the kidnapping of 4 U.S. citizens in Mexico to push her agenda. Quote, Mexican cartels kidnapped 4 Americans this weekend in Mexico is so dangerous that if you go to Mexico, you are on your own, unquote, she claimed. Quote, but, Ukraine, unquote. She was quickly mocked. Quote, the moral and emotional leader of the Republican Party wants to use cruise missiles against Tijuana and also has no knowledge of what's required to do an airstrike anyway, so things are going great, unquote, tweeted communication strategist Dante Atkins. Steve Metz, a professor of national security and strategy at the U.S. Army War College who specializes in American defense policy, mocked Green, tweeting, quote, tell me you are clueless about national security strategy and international law without saying you are clueless about national security strategy and international law, unquote. Okay. You know, sometimes I wonder if she really means shit like this, or is she just blowing smoke up somebody's ass in order to get, you know, favors. You know, if she sounds hardcore and stuff like that, who is she, you know, who's she talking to? Is it Trump? You know, is this what it is? She's saying all this stuff to make Trump smile on her? You know, I have to wonder, because I've never heard anyone in all the years I've been on this earth ever say anything about attacking Mexico because of illegal immigration. Okay? The cartel issue down there has always been a problem in Mexico, and as far as I could tell, we've done the best we could at keeping their influence out of the country. We haven't always done a very good job at it. In fact, it's Mexico ain't the only place where we've been getting problems like that. Cuba's another place. But anyway, the fact is that these cartels, who she claims as, running the government, I really don't know how deep that goes into Mexican government. It could be pretty deep. I don't know. And trying to label Mexico as a clear and present danger to America if we don't keep our borders closed, I mean, that's essentially what she's trying to do here at the end of the day, is she wants to tighten up security on the border. She figures nobody's listening to her when she's talking about, illegal immigrants coming across, secretly or, illegally through the border. And, everybody's been attacking her for being, racist in that regard because of the things she says. So now she's trying to say, oh, well, we got to attack Mexico because, it's so bad that, even people from Mexico are deliberately kidnapping Americans and stuff. We just don't know the details to stuff like that, okay? And for her to just generally, cover the issue with saying it's all a cartel issue, it's all this, it's all that. it's just a way of the right wing to say, see, look how bad it is down there. This is another reason why we need to shut down the borders, okay? And all along, I mean, it's always been a problem, okay? The cartel issue has always been a problem. But for the Republicans, the bigger problem was always illegals coming across the border. It was never about the cartels, for Republicans. It was never about that. Always people wanting to flee Mexico to come to America to start anew, okay? But now Green says, well, that's not hardcore enough, so let's just say that all Mexicans down there have to are targets, basically. Because does she really know who the cartels are? Okay, really? How does she know who to strike? And missiles are not discriminating. You hit a missile anywhere, and you're going to have a lot of innocent bystanders get killed. Do you think Mexico's going to sit by and let that go on? No. It doesn't matter. What she says about that. It's never going to happen. The United States is not going to attack Mexico like that at all, period. Okay? It ain't going to happen. And anybody that would try to say that they can get somebody in government or like a president to do something like that, I doubt even the military would go along with it. I really would. I think, as bad as Trump was, there were people in the military who were prepared to basically disobey him and shut him out. Okay, as you could see during the hearings for the January 6th riot, there were already people in government who were pretty much set to, say to Trump, we're not following your fucking orders anymore. That's it. Okay, you're crazy. You're not fit to be president. Okay, there were people prepared in position to stop him. Okay, they weren't going to go any further with this guy. And I think, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and her idea of doing that ain't ever going to happen either. And the fact is, like I said, I don't think she really means it. I think she's just blowing smoke in the air to see if Trump is going to look at her and say, oh, yeah, I want her, as a running mate. Because maybe that's what it is. They know Trump is going to run for president, and everybody's fighting over who's going to be the running mate. And the person who can talk the biggest bullshit is the one that's going to get picked. Okay? And what better way to do that than to say, oh, let's nuke this country, let's blow up Mexico, let's kill all the illegal. The more insane you sound, they figure that's what Trump wants. Okay? And forgetting along the way that Trump ain't loyal to nobody. He might like you one day, he'll probably hate your guts the next. Okay? We saw that in those 4 years that he was president. How many people did he kick out of the White House here? He ain't got no loyalty to anybody. He tried to get his own vice president killed on January the 6th. Okay? This is what he is. And she wants to, she seems to want to be a part of that rabble. Is she nuts? No. I'll tell you what we ought to tell Marjorie Taylor Greene. If Trump becomes president, we're going to ask Russia to do a nuclear strike on Washington, D.C. How do you think that's going to sound, okay? You think they're crazy? We can one-up you and then some. Because we're not going to let no friggin' autocrat or a dictator or some asshole take this country by the throat and turn it inside out into something that nobody in America is going to like. I guarantee you, even if you're a Republican, you're not going to like what these people on the right wing have in store for you if they get their way. Okay? We know better because we're smarter than you. All right? That's the reason why you guys are still living in the past, thinking Trump is your president, because you won't call him former president. Okay? You guys are still living in the past, so we're years ahead of you mentally on what Trump is all about. So you guys are going to have to follow our lead here on this. But I'm telling you, you're not going to be happy at all if Trump becomes president and the Republicans get their way all over the country. It's not going to be a country you're going to be happy to live in very quickly. In fact, today though, there was a thing about Kentucky. Mitch McConnell, that's his state, right? They were showing that the Republican legislature down there had kicked back. Well, actually, what they did is they overturned a veto by the Democrat governor of that state. Okay, he had vetoed a bill that was supposed to sunset the increased amount in food stamps that was going out to the people in Kentucky. They were getting something like over 200 and something a month, I guess, for some of these people, maybe more for others. And that was supposed to end because they, from what I understand, the national emergency over COVID was closed. Basically, it's not a national emergency anymore, so they closed it. I guess according, to what the president had done. And so they figure, okay, well, now's the time we can stop giving out all these, increased food stamp things. That's what the Republicans were thinking. So they put a bill together and they sent it to the governor, and the governor vetoed it. And they turned around and they overrode the veto. And now everybody who was getting like over $200 something a month is getting like $25 or $30 a month. And now the food pantries in the state are overwhelmed with hordes of cars lined up all as far as the eye can see, trying to get food out of these places because they ain't got any, and people, basically they're starving in Kentucky, thanks to the Republican Party. And do you think they give one shit about what they done down there? No, they don't care. You hear Mitch McConnell talking anything about it, or throwing his fat around with the governor to try to get him to to do something, or throw around his fat around with the party to get them to? No, he ain't doing nothing either. It's what it is. It's like the more people suffer, the better the Republicans like it. Okay, and what they'll do in return is they'll say, well, he's the governor, so he's to blame for this. Not thinking, I guess they figured no one's even going to bother to check the details on how that happened. Okay, that the governor had nothing to do with it. He was actually trying to keep it in play, and the Republicans said, no, we're not going to let you. We're taking that out of your hands, and we're going to, overrule that veto. And so now the people are getting way less, and the people that run these food pantries down there, I mean, they're overwhelmed. They've never seen this many people in their life when they run these things. And, I don't think there's going to be enough food to help feed, people, in these areas of the state that are suffering now. I feel like, this is America, really. I mean, this is the United States today. I mean, how would we have thought, 40, 50 years ago, if we could get a little thing to see into the future, and we would see something like this going on in the state of Kentucky? Do you think people would believe that? I don't think people back then would have. I think they would have said, no, this country would never let that happen. There's safeguards in place. Somebody would do something. They would just look at it probably like a science fiction movie and say it, or look at it like 1984 and say, that's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. And every day since that movie had come out, we've been inching closer to that reality here. Okay? And so this is, we all really should ask ourselves, what kind of America do we really want? I mean, when we sit back, watch this stuff go on, and we don't say anything. Why, shouldn't there be protests going on in that state? I mean, I know it's a red state, but, hey, this is Republicans finding out what Republicans are all about. This is happening to their own people down there. I mean, how do you think a goddamn Democrat became governor in that state in the first place? And so they think that the Republicans think this is the way to go to get support for their party in that state by, cutting everybody's throat? I mean, come on. I mean, do they really want to get power back, or don't they? I mean, this is not leadership, folks. This is self-destruction. That's what the Republican Party is doing. They're self-destructing. Okay? Why are people letting this go on either party? I'm not just asking the Republicans, but either side. Democrats as well as Republicans are suffering in that state because of this shit. Okay? So why aren't they out there in hordes at the Capitol, okay, beating down the doors, or something, and say, we want to talk to, the legislature, we want to get this undone, change this back. People are starving, we just can't do that. They can spend all kinds of money trying to stop people from, getting abortions and getting books that they don't want you to read, and fighting transgender people and gays and all these other people. They could spend hordes and hordes of money on that to advance that cause, right? But when it comes to just feeding people, to keep them from starving, they ain't there. They're not there for them, for those people. They just say goodbye. And I think that really, people really need to keep that burned in their mind when they go vote and say, look, if you vote R for any R on your ballot, okay, just remember what the R really is about in this country. And it ain't about protecting America or the people living in it. It's all about protecting their interests and the rich donors that give them all the money they need to keep doing what they're doing. All right, they just don't want to. They don't want to care about anything, really. They don't want to care about anybody. If you're not one of the elite, then you're nobody. You're a nobody, no matter who you are. Even if you're Republican, you're a nobody. Okay, they just need your vote. Once they get your vote, they kick you out the door. But Republicans are so gullible and they so stubborn that their stubbornness and their gullibility is killing them. In this instance it is. Being Republican is suicide for people in that state. And if they want to continue to support the Republican Party, they are still committing suicide here. And a lot of these people are probably going to starve to death, just as they died when they got COVID-19, believing that it was a hoax because Donald Trump said it was. These people went to their graves believing that horse shit. Okay, so once again, you're watching, the Republican Party self-destruct. Okay, how long can a party like that last? Going down that road year after year. I mean, I just don't see how that's even. I don't see how that strategy works. Honestly, I don't. They need voters. Okay, they don't have enough voters in that party. Okay, they're resorting to cheating now in order to get their way. That's how bad it is. They don't have that. They don't have enough voters to win elections, so they have to cheat. They have to redistrict. That's how they got the majority in Congress, is they redistrict all the areas that they had to win. Okay, otherwise they would have lost. They would have lost both houses. So, folks, I mean, the data and the proof is out there that republicanism, conservatism, whatever you want to call it, doesn't work. And people are not for it. Okay, they just aren't. They've seen too much in the last couple of years about this party, and they've had it up to here with them, and they're saying, you know what, fuck them. Okay, we're going to go join independent or Democrat or whatever. Okay, but we're getting the hell out of that party because it's just melting, it's just melting into nothing, and we don't want to be part of it, That's what their people are saying in this country. Okay, so this other story here is about Ukraine, from the Washington Post, written by Siobhan O'Grady, entitled "Russia Advances in Bakhmut by Sending Waves of Mercenaries to Certain Death." Nigh pro-Ukraine. It takes Ukrainian troops little more than a glance to tell if Russian fighters advancing on their positions near the fiercely embattled city of Bakhmut are seasoned soldiers or recent recruits. The men enlisted to fight for Russia's Wagner mercenary force, many of them convicted criminals recruited behind bars and sent to fight in Ukraine in exchange for their freedom, are dirtier, and they don't have the same military uniforms or flak jackets like regular Russians soldiers do, said Dmytro Vatagin, 48 years old, a Ukrainian soldier stationed in the neighboring village of Ivanivsk with the volunteer 24th Battalion. The mercenary fighters typically move on Ukrainian positions early in the morning, he said, attempting attacks in irregular and unpredictable patterns, seemingly without any clear strategy, which makes them seem, quote, unprepared, unquote, for battle. It is only later in the day that better trained Russian forces often enter the fray, seeking to make a real advance. Quote, Wagner and the mobilized are being just thrown like meat toward the front line, Vatican said. Still, their fighting style poses a challenge to Ukrainian troops and the waves and waves of them sent forward have proved exhausting, resulting in staggering casualties on both sides. Quote, it's easier to fight the Russian army because you understand what they're going to do and how you're going to work against them, unquote, Vatican said in an interview Monday away from the front. With the Russians still pushing hard from the north, east, and south to encircle Bakhmut in the eastern Donetsk region, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with his top defense and security officials Monday and proclaimed that Kyiv had no intention of surrendering the city, which is nearly destroyed. Despite reports of complaints from Ukrainian soldiers that they are fighting under desperate and untenable conditions, and military experts insisting that Bakhmut is of little long-term strategic value to Russia, Zelensky's office issued a statement saying that Valery Zaluzhny, the Ukrainian military commander-in-chief, and Alexander Syrsky, the commander of ground forces who is directing operations in the east, had each endorsed reinforcing and continuing the city's defense. Quote, assessing the course of the defense operation, the president asked Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Valery Zaluzhny, and Commander of the Eastern Group of Troops, Alexander Syrsky, about further actions in the Bakhmut direction, unquote, the statement said. Quote, they spoke in favor of continuing the defense operation and further strengthening our positions in Bakhmut, unquote. That Zelensky's office felt compelled to issue the statement highlighted the second-guessing now underway in Ukraine and abroad. Western military analysts have warned that battling to deny Russia a largely symbolic victory may be costing Ukraine too much. Oleksiy Danilov, Secretary of Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, reported that the meeting expressed support for the continued defense of the city without ruling out a withdrawal after Russia claimed Sunday that Russia's Wagner mercenary fighters had captured territory in the eastern and northern parts of the city. But responding to a follow-up query about Zelensky's meeting with his top generals and advisors, called the staff to the Supreme Commander-in-Chief, Danilov said, quote, in order to avoid various insinuations that affect public sentiment, the opinion of the members of the staff regarding the defense operation was made public. We continue to defend our land regardless of all sides of the assessment in the situation, unquote. The situation, based on accounts from soldiers in or near Bakhmut, is increasingly difficult. Fighting is so intense that Vatagan said he and his team have at times searched houses for Russian forces, then engaged in hand-to-hand combat with them, ultimately capturing some combatants as prisoners of war. Quote, fistfights have been happening, unquote, he said. Quote, everyone has their own fighting story, unquote. Vatagan's team is responsible for maintaining control of the highway that connects Ivanovisk to Bakhmut. The road remains vulnerable to Russian artillery attacks, but is a key supply route. With Russian forces controlling territory to their north, south, and east, the area comes under regular shelling. In the last 2 days, he said they have lost 8 reconnaissance drones and 2 of their soldiers were wounded. Quote, we were given the command to hold the road out of Bakhmut to ensure our guys get everything they need, and we will hold that one until they tell us otherwise, unquote, he said. Some analysts have argued that Ukraine should focus on the more important goal of mounting a major offensive in coming months to drive Russian forces out of occupied territories in eastern and southern Ukraine. Bakhmut, with a pre-war population of some 70,000, has been largely reduced to ruin by Russian attacks. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin argued Monday that if Ukraine withdrew, it would not alter the broader conflict. Quote, I think it is more of a symbolic value than it is strategic and operational value, unquote, Austin said while on an official visit to Jordan. Quote, the fall of Bakhmut won't necessarily mean that. The Russians have changed the tide of this fight, unquote. So Michael Kaufman, a military analyst at Center for Naval Analysis, who last week visited Bakhmut, tweeted on Monday that Ukraine's, quote, tenacious defense of Bakhmut achieved a great deal, unquote, by cutting down Russian manpower and ammunition. But Kaufman suggested the time had come to think of saving troops and resources for a future offensive, noting in a tweet that, quote, strategies can reach points of diminishing returns, and it could impede the success of a more important operation, unquote. Quote, from artillery ammo shortages, increasingly contested lines of communication, and attritional battle in unfavorable terrain. This fight doesn't play to Ukraine's advantages as a force, unquote, Kaufman said. Russia's assault on Bakhmut, now in its 8th month, has been led by Wagner, which has used the prison recruits as cannon fodder, sent in waves to weaken the Ukrainians' resistance or to expose their position. Wagner's more battle-hardened and professional troops, many with years of experience fighting in Syria or Africa, then move into secure territory. Even so, Russian advances have been extremely slow. In an interview last month, Syrskyi, the ground force commander, said that Russia has been on the offensive since January the 5th, with more than 320,000 troops fighting in Ukraine, according to Ukraine's military intelligence, with more expected to join the battlefield this spring. The Russian offensive, quote, just keeps getting stronger, new directions are being added, but the enemy is attacking all this time using different tactics in different directions, unquote, Syrskyi said. The most effective of those tactics, according to Syrskyi, is Wagner's wave of small assault groups in the battle for Bakhmut. He and other military personnel in the area describe small groups of soldiers storming Ukrainian positions. If they fail to advance, another group follows, exhausting the Ukrainians over time. Wagner's goal might be to advance just 300 to 400 meters at a time, Syrskyi said. Quote, it's a working tactic, unquote, he said. Quote, it's based on constant advancement, however slight, and takes absolutely no account of human losses, unquote. Poland-based military analyst Konrad Musaika of Rochin Consulting, who also traveled to the city last week, tweeted that there were 2 Wagners. Quote, one is well known with convicts conducting frontal assaults on Ukrainian lines. The other one is less known, but well equipped, with well-trained force that's adaptable and flexible, unquote. Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin, I guess, has tried to use the Bakhmut battle to bolster his position in Russia and to attack Russia's military leadership. In recent days, Prigozhin released a series of aggressive statements attacking top Russian military officials, accusing them of starving his forces of ammunition. Quote, we continue to smash the armed forces of Ukraine near Bakhmut, unquote. Prigozhin said in comments released by his press service Monday, renewing his demand for more ammunition from the Russian Defense Ministry. Prigozhin, unlike President Vladimir Putin, has made numerous trips to the war zone, including a recent video claiming to be in Bakhmut, but he denied Monday that he has political ambitions in response to a question after graffiti appeared in the southwestern Russian city of Voronezh, urging him to run for president. Quote, I have no political ambitions, unquote, he said. Quote, our task is to fight and protect the interests of the Russian Federation, unquote. All right, so people are bitching, about resources here, okay, that this kind of fight they're having in Bakhmut is just taking up too much resources on both sides here, okay? And of course, it's, everybody wants to hurry up and win this thing, because the longer it goes on, the longer it will go on, okay? It's sort of like, Afghanistan. I mean, Russians fought that war for years, and, and when they thought they had the advantage, they didn't. And so you're seeing this play out again because, look, Russia's not just fighting Ukrainian soldiers, he's also fighting NATO, who's trying to help out Ukraine, okay? And, it's proxy war, I guess is what they call it, with our two countries butting heads here by fighting this out, unfortunately, on one country's ground. And personally, I don't see how this really helps Ukraine in the long run, because when you got two countries with such a history of hatred towards one another as the United States and the former Soviet Union, which is now Russia, had, they're going to try to wipe each other out in any way they can. And, I suspect that Russia is probably getting help from China. Whether or not we officially know that or not, I think that's what's going on. China's got no love for the United States either. So this thing could end up being sort of a world war on this poor country's back, where Ukrainians are going to be like shoved aside, and everybody is going to be fighting on this war right there. I don't know. Can you see that that's where we're headed right now if we don't hurry up and end this fucking thing? Because it's going to get to the point where what started this, Russia marching into Ukraine, isn't going to matter anymore. What's only going to matter is one side doing all it can to defeat the other, okay, no matter who it is. It's not going to matter to the United States, that we're trying to help Ukraine anymore. In fact, already people are starting to turn on Ukraine in the United States. You hear it, on the news. You could feel the momentum shifting away from supporting Ukraine to being sympathetic to Putin. Okay, and that's very disturbing. I have to say, to hear people in our own media, propping up Putin as some sort of a fucking hero here now. Okay. When at the very beginning of this thing, when Russia lied to us and said they were only going to do, training exercises on the border of Ukraine, and nobody in the media thought that Putin was going to attack. They'd say it was it'd be the dumbest thing they ever did. And then one morning we all wake up and that's exactly what they were doing. And everybody got caught with their pants down. Okay. And so, the United States decided they were going to help them out, and everybody was yes, let's go, and then all of a sudden, after about 8 or 9 months of this, people's interest shifted. Okay, there's people starting to talk about Ukraine has really got Nazis in there and all this stuff, and they're believing all the lies that Putin has been telling his own people. Okay, they're hearing his propaganda, and they're taking it and trying to sell it over here too. Okay. And, just little by little, inch by inch, it's shifting public opinion away from this war. And I do suspect that at some point, if this doesn't end soon, that the people in this country are going to force our own government to stop helping Ukraine. Okay? And when that happens, it's over. And I don't know what NATO is going to do. They're going to be left holding the bag. The rest of NATO. Because you got to remember, there's other countries that are sitting right now on pins and needles hoping that Russia doesn't come after them, like Poland, okay? You got countries that are right there on their doorstep, and they're going to want help should Russia go after them. And in the United States, are we going to help them, or are we going to say, no, Russia's doing the right thing? We become pro-Russia here in some parts of America. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who, going out there and attack the Ukrainian people, saying that they started it. They're the ones that invaded Russia, right? Like they ever left the border of Russia, and all this time, they never left Ukraine. They've been fighting this whole war on their own soil here since it started. They never advanced at all. Okay, they were worried that the Russians were going to advance on them, so they did have some military watching to make sure that the Russians stayed on their side. But they never advanced into that country. They stayed on their side, and it was Russia all the way, pushing the tanks, pushing the airplanes, the boats, and all that, pushing all that around Ukraine to take over that country. And they damn near did it at the beginning of it. But if it wasn't for all the help they were getting from us, Russia would have that country back under its wing again. Okay, today. So, this fight should be something we as Americans should understand, because we fought this kind of war before too, for our independence. All right, and we use that as our national anthem, for Christ's sake. So, I wonder, when people actually sing that anthem, do they remember the words to it? Maybe that's the reason why we sing it so badly from time to time at games and stuff like that, is because we don't remember the fucking words to that theme, and what it's saying. Okay, even though I hate that fucking song, okay, because it's all about what we did that day, and it doesn't talk about anything glorious about the country, only about the fight we had to fight against Britain to get it. They don't remember the words to that, and therefore they have no memory of it. They forgot all that they've learned about that and from school, and now they can't even sing the goddamn song. They probably don't even know where the hell it was fought in the first place, where the song originated from. Where the flag was and all that. They probably have no fucking idea where that went, where that song was set for. So I just feel like, America has lost its roots, or lost its its hold on its roots a long time ago, because we've sort of got this grandiose idea that we've always been like this, as we are today, okay? And America is righteous in whatever it does, because we're always told by our leadership that we're always right, even when we know we're doing things wrong, like going into Iraq. Okay, we're always told that we're righteous and we're doing all these things, and so people believe it. They never consider the fact that our leaders are human and they can make mistakes, or can be deliberately deceptive to get gains for themselves that we don't know about. So we hear the national anthem, and people are just they don't, all they know is they're supposed to stand up and put their hand over their heart while it's being played. They don't understand anything more about that song than that, I'm sorry to say, because a lot of people today, they like to fight and argue, and when they see somebody doing something else, like taking a knee during the song, that's like, what the fuck is he doing? Okay, that's stupid, that's dishonorable. You don't even know what's dishonorable, because you don't even know what's honorable about that song, my friend. Okay, you forgot what that whole friggin' song, what it was based on, at what period in our history. Okay, you don't have any idea about that. I bet you couldn't even figure out the year it started. So I just figured out over time that people are told to be a certain way about something, okay, and instead of understanding it as to why should I be like this about something, instead of trying to understand the detail behind it, they just accept that they have to do that, and they don't have any idea other than what they're told to do. They just do it. Okay, and if somebody does something different, they feel insulted that they have to be respectful for something and they don't, and the other people don't. Okay, people don't want to be respectful about the national anthem or the flag or any of that, because they don't understand it. They need to go back to school and remind themselves what that symbolizes. Okay, they have to go back to school and read about it. The fucking TV is constantly telling people every fucking day. You got the History Channel trying to remind people of our own history. Do they bother watching that? Probably not. They're too busy watching football and baseball and wrestling and shit like that to even take a walk down memory road here and learn something about your country. Learn something about your country. Watch the History Channel from time to time. They got stuff on there that'll educate you on things about America. But that's what Ukraine is going through right now. Okay, they're trying to defend their identity. They don't want it taken away from them by a superpower. Okay, they split from Russia, and Putin didn't like it when it happened, and they've been trying to be, a democratic nation ever since. Okay, but Putin doesn't want that still. He wants that country back, and ultimately, if we don't, find a way to end this thing soon, it's going to end up just being a big flat desert of what used to be a great land, great country. You heard it right in there, Kyiv. There's not much left of Kyiv anymore. It's mostly destroyed. Beautiful city, you know, before this shit all happened. But now it's just rubble. Okay, there's going to be a whole lot of rubble all over that damn country, and you know, anybody that's still there now really ought to think about getting the fuck out of Dodge, because there ain't going to be an inch of fucking land in that country that ain't going to be blown to hell before this is all said and done. You know, this is what it's going to cost the people in that country. They're going to lose everything they got, unfortunately. Okay, let's go to commercial break. We'll be right back.
This fall, make a brilliant getaway to Maine. Start planning your Maine vacation at visitmaine.com. You'll find hundreds of fall getaway packages filled with exciting special offers. You can also request your free Maine travel planner. Come discover, there's more to Maine.